Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intelligent Community, the podcast of the Intelligent Community Forum. I'm Lou Zaccarella, one of the founders of the forum. Well, we know about intelligent communities and how they use the ICF method to perform at a very high level. But in this new episode that we're creating, we're going to be looking at another area that we really don't talk about or touch often, but that we often see when we do our top 7 site visits, for example, and that is policing the intelligent community. What does that mean? We know intelligent communities are different. We know that they perform at a very high level economically and socially, no matter what their size, but all communities need to police themselves. And so in this age of COVID, the pandemic, the riots, and the social unrest, how have police forces adapted? How have they used technology and their basic sense of public service to go into the community and in some cases reinvent themselves for the 21st century? How are intelligent communities being policed? This series is brought to you by our ICF Canada organization. And in this series, we'll be looking at 3 communities in Canada. We'll be looking at use of force policies in various intelligent communities. And finally, we'll circle the world and we'll look at former intelligent communities of the year and find out the differences in policing in different cultures and how they're responding to some of the changes that are in our society today. In this series, you're going to hear a lot of different things and ideas. You're going to hear how technology is being used to help balance out policing. You're going to hear about a common problem that has exploded in cities all around the world, and that is both homelessness and mental health. And you're going to be hearing how people are using collaboration, a tool that we think is the secret sauce of successful community management, to police better. You'll hear about philosophies about defunding police, funding programs, what police should do and what they shouldn't do. I think it's going to be a fascinating series of conversations that you're going to hear. I've certainly enjoyed doing them. But to start this series off, I went north of the border and do something I often do when I need to do a deep dive on a subject. I go to the city of Stratford, Ontario in Canada, and speak with the mayor there, Mayor Dan Mathieson. Mayor Mathieson, of course, runs a city that has North America's largest Shakespeare Festival, has been a multi-time top 7 intelligent community, and by all definitions operates at a very high level. But it too has been wrestling with how to police its intelligent community. And so Mayor Mathieson and I sat down and we had about a 25-minute conversation to get us going on this series. Mayor Mathieson, welcome.
Thanks so much, Lou, for having me on. It's great to see you.
Well, likewise, it's always great to see you. Mayor, I wanted to just start in with the big gorilla in the room, COVID-19, right? It triggered an economic crisis and high-profile, racially tinged episodes involving police and citizens. And within a short time, cities found themselves in the midst of a very turbulent time, especially where I am here in the U.S. in New York. What we'd like to explore is how intelligent communities are or should be responding to the issue of policing and what advantages or best practices they might offer others. So as usual, I've got you here as a teacher, the professor of intelligent communities. But my first question, Mayor, is, has Stratford been challenged by unrest or conflicts with policing or related social fallout in the wake of COVID? And if so, how are you guys handling it?
Lou, and thanks again for having me on. The people of Stratford and the communities surrounding us have done an outstanding job following government direction and voluntarily complying with what was put in place early on by not only our national, but also our provincial or state government, and of course locally. So people have done a good job. The Stratford Police, from the start, took on the role as compliance officer, but they did so in an education and awareness process ahead of enforcement. So before they were laying charges, they were really working to educate and make people aware. So that included high visibility patrols. It included use of social media. It included posts on social media. We put a whole sign campaign together within the community. And we did so in an effort to help people understand that, well, It looked like it was a problem in large metropolitan centers, in larger geographic areas, that it was still important for us in a small community to follow along. Now, I got to tell you, we saw an increase in mental health issues,
Hmm.
addiction, homelessness, domestic and neighbor disputes, harm. We even saw an increase in suicides, which was very sad. And we've understood now that mental health, now more than ever, has become a challenge as part of this. And we have not had what I would say any racialized group moving forward as part of it. We did have a Black Lives Matter in the aftermath of the George Floyd uh, murder,
Hmm.
and that's truly what it was. We had a Black Lives Matter protest here in Stratford. It was supported locally by government. The police took part in it to show respect for those protesting. We've had maybe 2 protests from anti-maskers. They couldn't fill a phone booth. There was 5 at one of them and 10 at the other. So we are not really concerned about that. And during the whole time, we've just really tried to convey compassion, understanding, but also an unwavering support that what we do as a community affects all of us. And it's been pretty supportive so far. And we've had incredible support for our frontline workers, whether it be fire, police, paramedics, whether it be people within nursing homes or hospitals. People have been dropping off gifts for them, meals, sign campaign. The United Way raised over $50,000 selling signs within our geographic region saying we support frontline workers, and all the money went to support hospitality workers that were out of work, individuals that needed additional mental health counseling, or community food banks.
Wow, that's a true community effort. Mayor, what's the size of the Stratford Police Force? Do you guys work in conjunction with the mounted police?
So in Stratford geographic area, we police 2 additional communities, Perth South and the town of St. Mary's. The Stratford police are 86 sworn officers. Our immediate counterpart adjacent to our community is the Ontario Provincial Police, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have jurisdiction over the entire country, specifically in some crime areas, but they're always there as a support. And we've
Right.
had really good support from the RCMP, whether it be through cyber crime or technology crime, fraud cases and such, but the day-to-day policing falls to the jurisdiction of the men and women of the Stratford Police Service.
And the community has by and large been supportive of the police.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
We have had our own challenges, though. A number of years ago, I'd say 3 years ago, the Globe and Mail, one of the national newspapers here
Sure.
in Canada, based out of Toronto, had done a study that identified shortcomings in smaller police services with regard to domestic and sexual assault crimes. And Stratford was identified as one of the departments that needed to improve its forensics, its investigation, its number of charges laid. And we followed a national framework that the RCMP and OPP put together. And we now today are benefiting from that collaboration between police jurisdictions, and also what I call cooperation with our victim services and our domestic violence and women's shelter, who have actively provided very solid input and direction to our police service.
Mm. Um, what's been, you mentioned mental health, and boy, that just keeps popping up again and again and again in our conversations uh, within COVID, but also we were hearing it a lot before COVID. Is mental health the biggest community challenge to safety, or is it drugs, or what would you evaluate as the biggest?
Well, a lot of it stems, it's kind of a circular piece.
Mm.
Economic or social challenges, whether it's family challenges, whether it's economic hardship, lead to some form of mental stress. And those mental stresses then lead people to take a couple of different avenues. Sometimes it's to use drugs as an exit to get out of what they think will help them get through a situation. Sometimes it's suicide, or sometimes it just continues on. And if they stay in the depression sense, then we find that sometimes they head off into homelessness, they head off into domestic and sexual violence, and it really becomes an issue. What we're finding right now, there are a number of people in our community that do not have an outlet to discuss their problems with, and technology has been one of those challenges where we only see the best of everyone's life, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. TikTok's supposed to make you laugh, but it portrays that nobody has any challenges, and really it's not real. People are not having an outlet to discuss the challenges they experience day to day.
That's so interesting because, we have such an amplified citizen, right, with access to all this technology, and yet you're saying that people still feel isolated or lonely or unable to speak to their government, to speak to their friends, to speak to people who can help them.
Yeah, for sure.
It's weird.
Lou, one of the things I found is the level of social discourse uh, and its coarseness or its level of lack of respect has increased as the adoption rate in social media has increased.
Hmm.
People are much taller, much smarter, uh,
Right.
much less tolerant behind a keyboard than they ever would be in person. And the more that we put services online, we've allowed people to express their views online, we lose sight of the fact of how they talk and respect others.
Yeah, I think that's true. Um, is there anything you can? Is there anything a community can do about that?
Well, I think what's key for us to do is to continue to offer the wide array of services in person. I'm a big believer in smart cities and how it help provide better service and
Right.
inclusionary opportunities, but it should never replace the opportunity for people to come together in the same room and to share ideas collaboratively. And that's why other tools need to be used that allow that online collaboration where people talk into a group and ideas filter through it, not where people talk at somebody else and hit send and then walk away. And I think we're seeing it now. We still want to have some in-person meetings, even though public health's not allowing us. City council is trying to figure out a way how we can get the public more engaged. So on Zoom, are we allowing enough delegates or delegations so people can actually come on a Zoom, book their time, let them know what the city think or what they think of the city's decisions, ideas they may have on certain items. And we're now doing that. And I think that's very beneficial for many of us.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when you actually have to confront somebody physically face to face, you're a different creature than you are, as you say, behind the keyboard. Mayor, so I'm going to combine these two questions then, because you, as usual, you raised a great point. I wanted to talk about how technology is playing a more significant role in policing in Stratford or
Yeah.
elsewhere that you've observed, but also work into it this idea of community policing, because we've seen it invoked now in a lot of places. When we talk about reforming the police, even here in New York, we're talking now about revisiting community policing as a concept. So my question is there, first of all, a balance between the technology that goes into policing, body cameras and whatever it is, and this idea of the police officer being a part of that community physically, as you say? Is there some kind of happy medium that you've either observed or thought about?
So I'm going to give you an example, Lou, of some of the technologies that are being used today, somewhat are going to be used in the future, and then still what are the outcomes in crimes. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what the community can do. But when you think about how technology is being used today, we're looking at things such as a DNA data bank, automatic license plate readers on police cars so we know whether the car is registered, the driver's got charges against it, uh, all those types of things. We're looking at a power case where we share our evidence database with other departments so there's trends in seeing serial crime committers, fraudsters, sexual assault, murderers in the area. We're looking at alcohol and drug impairment roadside analysis equipment so we can do more of it. GPS to deploy our resources. We're tracking officers. We're doing all those things. And of course, we use social media. The next future for us, body worn cameras, next generation 911 that takes it off a cell phone, GPS coordinates, tracks people better, electronic police notebooks, all those things. But what we've really found though is the increase in crimes using technology, cyber crimes, bullying, ransomware. The city got a cyber attack last year. We went through it. Surveillance cameras, making sure that we're following people's privacy. We're seeing more child pornography shared within our communities. So, that's the good and the bad of technology. But where do I think we're going as a community? We're trying to make sure that, one, our high schools have an officer assigned to them so that every child in a high school in Stratford in the region has an officer. Well, they'll say, well, today I'm going to see Officer Bell. He's here every day and he's a safe zone for me. The officer's aware of the trends within the school. He's developing community education awareness programs for those youth that are consistent with what's going on in the school today. So they're pivoting quicker. We're putting officers in all the elementary schools on a rotation. So they're not there every day, but they're there every week. They're there running different education. We're doing the same with fire. We're doing the same with seniors groups now and service clubs. So we're trying to make sure police are still being seen and that we're not using technology as an excuse to become invisible within our community. And we've gone back to marking a lot more of our police cars than we have in the past. You know, there was that trend for police cars not to be marked, but we're saying, no, let's mark them. People need to know who we are and what we're doing. And for the most part, people like to see that visibility. They feel they have a connection and there's an outlet for them to talk to those officers.
That's very interesting. And again, that's a community presence, right? It's almost developing a relationship, a collaboration. Does Stratford have a use of force policy?
Yeah, we have a use of force policy. And the nice part about it, Lou, is in Ontario, there are 2 police oversight groups that are outside of the reach of the local community, which means I can appeal to them. And the people that will adjudicate my claim are civilian people in Toronto who have no vested interest in the decision. One is called the Special Investigations Unit. Anytime anyone feels that a police officer has used too much force, they can actually appeal to that group. And the other is the Ontario Public Complaints, OPRD. Let me get the linkage right on that. Ontario Police Investigative Research Directorate. So if I feel the police have mishandled my case, used my private information for a different way, I can go to them, and the OPIRD can actually adjudicate down and put a verdict down on us. And that has put the reach of holding police accountable and transparent within every citizen, which is important. And, you know, one of the things we're doing next is we're getting ready for a community mobilization and engagement model. And we're creating a community equity action team. And it's going to be part of our community well-being strategy. And we're bringing for the community well-being strategy, social service groups, business groups, mental health, hospital and medical people together with police to talk about how we make sure the system doesn't fail somebody along the way and that it becomes an overlaying foundational piece of our well-being plan for our community.
So that's again, just to go back to that magic word in Canada, which is why I think a lot of things work, collaboration.
Yeah,
You're bringing
definitely
together these different parts, and that is that, are you considering that a first step in, quote, police reform?
Well, I would say, Lou, it is very much a step in police reform. You know, the other thing we've put in place is we have a community domestic assault review team. So when anybody in our community lodges a complaint around domestic or sexual assault, the officer completes his report, but it goes to our Crown attorney, the same as your district attorney, and then a panel of experts that are domestic and sexual assault professionals who look at the evidence and determine whether or not a charge should be laid. Not an officer who might be biased about, you know, whether the female deserved it, didn't deserve it, which is a terrible thing to say and should never happen. But it's a group of people looking at cases and giving their opinion. And that's important. That way the victim's voice is always heard.
Right, right. You know, Mayor, I didn't put it on my list of questions beforehand for review, but of course, Stratford is known worldwide for the Shakespeare Festival, Stratford Festival, every year. Now I'm going to assume that that's been put into abeyance, correct?
Yeah, so this year, for the first time, Lou, in 68 seasons,
right.
We did not have a Stratford Festival.
Since its founding, right?
Yeah, since its founding.
Yeah.
And we have had, the sad part about it is, you know, we normally welcome 1.5 million visitors a year to our community at 35,000, and we sell over 500,000 theater tickets, and that just did not happen this year. So that's led to a lot of economic challenges within our business community. 3,000 jobs directly and indirectly depend on the Stratford Festival, and it generates 130 million of GDP for the local economy. So that's a tough blow.
Yes, I was going to ask you, what have been the consequences of that related to what we're talking about here, social unrest, social disease, that type of thing? And how have you been able to manage that? Because that is a big one.
Yeah, so one of the problems are we think, you know, at the time when things are going well, nobody maybe thinks of the interplay between the various aspects of the economy. They all think that, you know, the manufacturing does its piece, the theater does its piece. But, you know, today, without the theater going this year, you now understand that the retail outlets, depend on the theater being strong. The HVAC, the air conditioning, heating, ventilation, mechanical contractor, they require people that make money from the theater and spend it in the community to be able to afford to buy new systems. And we've really seen that hit us this year, not
Yeah.
to mention the decimation of hospitality, tourism, and retail accommodation sector that definitely do rely on the theater every year.
Yeah. Has there been a law and order component to it? Have you seen an uptick in robberies, burglaries, car thefts,
No,
value
not really.
crimes?
We
No?
go back to my earlier statement. It all came down really. We saw an increase in domestic and neighbor disputes, assaults, alcohol use was up. We saw that, and our way of combating that was, of course, making the supports available in the community for mental health, and of course, an awareness campaign and visibility to give people an opportunity. And then, of course, as I said, the United Way stepped up with a fund to be able to help people that were suffering economic challenge.
Yeah. Mayor, last question. Again, I want you to sort of speculate because we get asked this question all the time, and I know for sure I can't answer it. I can just tell them what people like you say. Um, what advantages might intelligent communities have that others may not have when it comes to a more advanced concept for policing, public safety, and pulling communities together during these times? Because that's really what you've described, making a community more of a community versus trying to enforce things.
Well, I think, Lou, it goes back to the point you made. An intelligent community is someone that understands collaboration and cooperation. We understand that we need to take inventory of our strengths and identify our weaknesses, and then look for the answers not within ourselves all the time, but within our broader community. And to not be ashamed or upset to ask people with competing views or competing interests to give us their advice. And really, that's what I think an intelligent community does. It finds those ways to get to an answer, and nobody owns them. The community owns them. And nobody has to have pride or embarrassment over it. They just have to be able to share in the success of it. And I think that's where intelligent communities are moving ahead of so many others, because it's innate within them. They've practiced it for so many years, and it just becomes second nature when challenges, pandemics such as COVID-19, knock on our doors.
Yeah, I think it's a really good way to say it. The filmmakers, an American filmmaker, his name's Michael Moore. You're probably familiar with him. You see
Flint,
him on the.
Michigan, Mike.
That's right. That's right. He's taken to wearing a baseball cap that says "Make America Intelligent Again." And what I wanted to say to him, maybe we'll get him on the show, but what I wanted to say to him is, we've got cities like Stratford all around the world that are already intelligent. So maybe we need to make them like that. What do you think?
Well, I think Michael Moore's onto something. I think instead of always being the race, and I'll just say this: there's always a race with communities, and you hear it all the time. I want to have the lowest taxes. I want to keep my costs low. I want to do all this. But intelligent communities have a social and framework. They have an economic well-being plan. They're inclusive, and all those things cost money. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but they're knit together to create a community and to create a spirit and an opportunity for us to all care about one another. If it's all about the dollars, if it's all about being the cheapest, it's never going to work. And intelligent communities are the ones that find a way to do it, but they do it in a comprehensive, collaborative, fiscally responsible fashion.
Yeah, I think again we'll probably end it on that note because, again, you've said something that's very true and should be heard. And you guys operate that way. Dublin, Ohio, which has its tax, right? Westerville,
Absolutely.
same structure. They're not cheap places,
No,
but the people believe that they're headed in the right direction, and so therefore they operate at a very high level as intelligent communities. Stratford, 3 times top 7, not the biggest city in the world, but
no,
proving again, right, that quality counts. People will gravitate.
absolutely, Lou. I won't name the community, but it's often people will say the community close to you, it's cheaper there. And I said, I know, but then you have to actually live there. And you're here because you enjoy all the amenities and everything we have as a community to offer. And with that comes a price of admission and a social and fiscal responsibility that goes to you as a citizen. And I'd rather be part of that compact agreement fashion than someplace that doesn't value it.
Yeah, and those are the communities that tend to keep their next generation.
Absolutely.
And I think
Absolutely.
that's really important. Well, Mayor Mathieson, we know you've got a council meeting to run too. We could talk to you for hours and pick your brain, but I really want to thank you for being with us today and making the time to have this conversation. It's always great to see you, Dan.
It's great to see you, Lou, and thanks for including me. All the best to you, Robert and John, and the entire staff. And I can't wait till I get back to an ICF event in person so that we can share our ideas and collaborate with all our friends around the world. Thanks so
Well,
much.
we can't wait to see you and get back up to that festival up there to watch some great acting.
All right.
Well, I'd like to thank Mayor Dan Mathieson of the City of Stratford for joining us on the first episode of this series, Policing the Intelligent Community. I think we're off to a good start, and we hope you enjoy this and upcoming episodes of the Intelligent Community when we continue to take a look at policing. For those of you who want to follow the Intelligent Community, check us out at New Communities and intelligentcommunity.org. For the Intelligent Community Forum, our ICF Canada sponsor, and all of the cities who are either intelligent communities or aspiring to be great places to call home, this is Lou Zaccarella reminding you that there really is no place like home. Take care, everybody.